In this video, I want to solve for the profit maximizing quantity with the following given information. I want to begin by completing the column number 3, which is described as total revenue, and I simply calculate total revenue as the price times the quantity. For a given quantity Q is equal to 0 and a price of 10, the total revenue is 0 times $10 or $0. If I don't produce anything, I'm not going to get any revenue. As I produce one more unit, however, I take the quantity of 1 times the price of 10, I multiply them together, and my total revenue here is $10. And I continue on down the rest of the column until I get to a quantity Q is equal to 5 times the price of $10 for a total revenue of $50. Next, I want to calculate the marginal revenue column. If you'll recall, marginal revenue is the change in total revenue divided by the change in Q. So as I go from 0 units to 1 units, I can see that my total revenue increases from $0 to $10, and so the change in total revenue is simply $10. And likewise, as I go from 1 to 2 units, my total revenue increases from $10 to $20, and so my marginal revenue is $10. And I continue on down to Q is equal to 5, where I have the same marginal revenue of $10. In column 5 here is my total cost column, and so when I want to calculate my marginal cost, remember that marginal cost is simply the change in total cost over the change in Q. So as I increase my units of production from 0 units to 1 units, I can see that total costs go from $5 to $9, or my marginal cost is a value of $4. As I produce one more unit and I go from 1 unit to 2 units, I can see that my total cost increased from $9 to $16 for a marginal cost value of $7. And as I continue on down the column, I fill out the values in the following way. And in the last column, I'm generating the profits for each given quantity. At Q is equal to 0, the total revenue is $0, and the total cost is $5. So when I subtract total cost from total revenue, I actually get a negative profit of -5. However, when I produce a unit of 1 unit, I subtract my total cost of 9 from $10, I have a positive profit of $1, and I continue to fill in the rest of the column as so. 20 minus 16 is 4, 30 minus 25 is 5, 40 minus 36 is 4, and lastly I see that the total revenue, or total cost subtracted from total revenue, is equal to a profit of 2. And now I've asked you to solve for the profit maximizing quantity. And there's a couple ways of doing this. Immediately I can look in the last column and see the profit as 5 when I produce a quantity of Q is equal to 3. So it makes sense that I choose the profit maximizing quantity of Q equals 3 because that's when my profit is maximized over this particular quantity range. Another way, though, to think about solving for the profit maximizing quantity is that I think at the margin. I'm going to continue to produce a quantity so that as long as my marginal revenue is is greater than my marginal cost. So when I produce 1 unit, I see that my marginal revenue of 10 exceeds my marginal cost of 4. So I'm going to want to produce 1 more unit. At a value of 2, I see that the marginal revenue of 10 is greater than the marginal cost. And so it makes sense to produce at a quantity Q is equal to 2 because marginal revenue exceeds marginal cost. And so then I look at a value of Q is equal to 3. When I produce that 3rd unit, I can see that the marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost. And so I produce that 3rd unit. However, look at what happens when I produce that 4th unit. I see that now my marginal revenue is less than marginal cost. So I don't want to produce that 4th unit. And in fact, the profit maximizing quantity is at a value of Q is equal to 3. So regardless if I go through and calculate the profits at each of the quantities, or I follow the profit maximizing rule that I continue to produce so long as the marginal revenue exceeds the marginal cost, either way I'm going to get a profit maximizing quantity of Q is equal to 3.